we're going to talk about a few things that I think that are super, super important with what Jim just said. And the two words that I really want to put out there are, first of all, assessing risk. Okay. That part is the main issue on really the entire country right now when it comes to retirement or when it comes to planning for retirement. Okay. And then when you're assessing that risk, right now, how do I achieve maximized growth in order to retire when I want, right? And if you have these questions, you're in the right spot because today we're going to kind of go over some key tactics that I think that people aren't really understanding when it comes to IRAs and 401ks and any type of retirement account that you have and what the point of those retirement accounts are. Okay. So first of all, the point of these accounts are for what, Steve? Retirement, right?
Retirement, exactly.
Retirement.
And that's what our show's all about.
And that's where I think a lot of people start to really change direction when you're saving money and you're accumulating this growth is in retirement, you are putting those funds away, that type of fund that you're either putting into, let's just say your IRA or your 401k when your employer is maxing their contributions. But what you're also doing is you want to be able to maximize your growth with your risk tolerance. Okay, so whether you want to be conservative at 60 and when you want to retire at 65, whether you're 40 years old, you want to maximize your growth now and retire at 65, right? You have 25 years of time frame. These correlate directly with each other. Okay, so in order to do that, that's where we come in. And that's where we really make it simple for you. If you've got a 401k or an IRA out there, or maybe a Roth IRA, and the whole point of that account is to maximize your growth until retirement. Now, when retirement hits, you have to, start to plan the income side. And we help out with that too. But the main part I think everyone's missing is the 401ks and the IRAs, the 403bs, your TSBs. If you're still working today and you're contributing to those, they only have a certain limit, right? Or certain funds that you can put in to where you're starting to be able to kind of grow, but you're not maximizing your growth. I'm seeing it out there. Okay. So if you look at your statement, you're thinking to yourself, man, I should have gained 20% last year. Or I should have gained more than 7 or 8 or 10. That's the issue. Okay. Because that 10% could really matter down the road when you're compounding. These accounts are meant for compounding interest growth or compounding your growth in the market or in different assets. And that's where we come in and help you guys out with that and really, really make it simple. And we're able to maximize your growth down the road so that when you want to retire, you have the funds that you need to have to be able to place that income and start to withdraw money and set up income. If you need help, right? Even if you need help setting up an IRA or just wanting to understand the basics of what do I do, right? How do I set up my Roth IRA? What's the difference? Okay, that's a big question out there. Or am I contributing to my 401k, but I don't even know where I can put it? What are my options? That's where you need to give us a call. Okay, and our number is 850-565-1705. Again, that's 850-565-1705.
So, David, let me ask you, you talk about, there's a couple things when we're talking about 401k and IRAs and setting up money. I think time horizon is a big part of it. When people are looking at these accounts, and I say time horizon to retirement, maybe age, time horizon, everything plays a part of their planning and when we set up their retirement. And I think one of the things you mentioned that's important for listeners out there to understand, they're limited when they go into a 401k. And I just met somebody this morning before this call and this show, and they only had one option. It was an ETF that they had to use. And they tried to ask me, well, what is that? Is that a stock? Is that is our fees? And they were limited. And they're like, well, this is the only option my company gives me. So what are the alternatives that we can help them with? What can you help them with? If somebody, let's say they're 60, 61, this gentleman was 63, he's going to retire in 3 years. He didn't know what he could do with his 401k. Can you tell the listeners out there a little bit about what they can do?
That's a great point, Steve, because I come across that too much. Okay. First of all, 401ks are great when you're young and you're getting the matching ability and companies are throwing in money. But once you have accumulated funds, right, that's when you really need to start compounding, right? Because 10% of 100K is totally different than 10% of $1,000, right? You're looking at a $9,000 difference in just 1 year, right? So when you think about this, you have to have options out there, and there's tons of options. You got tons of different growth models, whether you want ETFs, whether you want stocks, whether you want, large cap, small cap, right? You've got mutual funds out there. There's so many options in the securities world, okay, and in the fixed side. So what you really have to do is have someone like us to be able to know this stuff and know what's down and what's up. The one thing that I'm seeing the most of is people aren't assessing what they're in and really maximizing their growth at certain times. Financial advisors should be taking care of these portfolios, okay, every single really quarter or year, especially when you're tax deferred. You can trade in these accounts without having to sell and earn capital gains, right? In these tax qualified accounts, you need to maximize growth. One of the biggest things I think is everybody puts their money into one fund, Steve.
Yeah.
What happens in your 401ks, they only offer 4 or 5 different funds. So they don't have the opportunity to really trade and get in the right subjects, the right trends, the right areas at certain times. And what we're seeing is a stagnant growth, right? You start to see your growth steadily declining as you get older. We need to get away from it.
The
We
funny
need to
thing is too,
that probability.
funny thing too on that, David, is I've looked at several statements recently, and the growth is stagnant. It's slow. But man, when that market takes a hit, it drops pretty quick. I mean, it's like
And
guy said I lost $9,000 in 2 days, and he goes, "It's, how long it took me to get to that 9,000." I go, "I know." So it seems like it drops quicker sometimes in these accounts because they don't have the control. They don't know what to do with it, and a lot of them don't understand the 401ks. They set it up. They hear they're getting matched, 4, 5, 6% from their employer. It's a good deal. And they just don't know what to do with the funds. And let me ask you a question. Can somebody roll over a 401k? Let's say they're still working and they're 61, 62. Is there an opportunity for them to roll that into an IRA while they're
I
still
would
working?
highly suggest them to roll over. I'm dealing with clients right now that are 30 to 35 years old that I'm helping roll over partial of their 401k into an IRA to have more assets there. Now, they're still contributing to their 401ks or their TSBs or their 403bs with the employer match, but rolling over what you have vested is super important to be able to maximize growth on both sides. And I can't say it enough. If you can compound and just get an extra 5% a year, you're going to double you're going to literally double in half the amount of time. And I try to tell people this because it is so important. And if you're out there and you're listening and you're thinking about maybe, hey, I have a 401k or I have an IRA, you need people like us, guys. You need to make it simple. You need to have it reinvested. You need to have someone taking care of this and maximizing your growth. Okay. Compounding to make sure that down the road in retirement, or if you're planning to retire, you're going to be able to have stability and assets and income that you know that you should have. Okay. The market changes a lot. Sectors change. Things happen, right? 401ks and 403bs do not adjust for that. They don't. They stay in the same funds, guys. When you're putting in your funds and you have a 401k or 403b or TSB or an IRA, and you're just putting in this, certain ETFs, that ETF there's no change in sector, right? They're going to stay in one sector, and that's the point of those funds. And again, if you have a 401k or you're thinking about, hey, or you even, you even have one in general and you don't even know what you're invested in. Okay. I want to make it really simple for you. If you're out there and you're like, hey, I've got a 401k, but I'm in this type of fund and you don't know what's out there and what's comparable, I can almost promise you that you're going to find something better out there. I can almost promise you there's different alternatives to what you have that are better. So again, give us a call, 850-565-1705. Again, that's 850-565-1705.
And if you like that video, be sure to click the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell for weekly content just like this. And for more, click the video on your screen.